This podcast is brought to you by the IIEA, sharing ideas, shaping policy.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Barry Colfer, and I'm the Director of Research here at the Institute of International and European Affairs. We're just waiting for people to file in and find their seats at this very exciting webinar on Finland's futures ecosystem. This is a really exciting topic, and one of our duties here at the Institute in Dublin is to try to find interesting lessons for public policy makers here and elsewhere from other parts of the world. And we have so much to learn from Finland on this topic from our esteemed group of experts who will be introduced in a moment. This event comes on the heels of an event we did on the 17th of September, where Finnish Europe Minister Joakim Strand spoke about Finland's futures ecosystem in a European context. A recording of this event will be shared in the chat for anyone who wants to look or listen back, and this was done with the kind support of the Department of Foreign Affairs. This event today and a future instalment, which will take place next month, has been organised in conjunction with the UCD Centre for Innovation, Technology and Organisation. And we're really delighted about that and to be working with the centre. So thanks to the team there. It's now my pleasure to hand over to our moderator for today, our colleague Donncha Kavanagh, who's full professor at UCD School of Business, who's going to introduce our speaker and the session. Thanks, everyone. Donncha.
Yeah, thank you very much, Barry, and thanks to everybody, to panelists, for being involved in this. Yeah, as he says, I'm a member of UCD's Centre for Innovation, Technology and Organising, and we're very pleased to run this seminar on Finland's futures ecosystem with the IIEA. And we've chosen the theme because Finland is often seen as having one of the most developed approaches to long-term thinking. And I suppose when we talk about futures thinking, we're talking about long-term thinking through its network of public institutions, research bodies, civil society, and private sector actors, as we can see from this slide, which I'll share with you now. So hopefully that's been shared. So as Barry says, we're going to follow this webinar with another webinar in November, also hosted by the IIEA, which will be more analytical, and it will critically assess the Finnish model, comparing it with other models, especially with Ireland's approach to futures thinking. I'd like to begin, though, with a few thanks. I'd like to thank my colleagues in CETO and UCD, Dermot O'Doherty and Tygo Mahoney, who've been involved in organising this. I'd very much like to thank the Finnish Embassy, in particular the Ambassador, Lena Gardenmeister, and Sarah Heinola, who've been very helpful in organising it. And the embassy, the Irish Embassy in Finland, Paul Colfer, the Ambassador, and Lorna McLaughlin. And of course, Barry and Kieran O'Donoghue and colleagues in the IIEA. So we're delighted to be joined today by a great panel and who have been generous enough to take time out of their schedules to speak to us. And I very much want to thank those. I'll briefly introduce them. And they're all located in different parts of the ecosystem, which you should be able to see at the moment. So there's Maria Hoisse, who is Senior Advisor to the Committee for the Future at the Parliament of Finland, and she's Senior Research Fellow at Finland's Futures Research Centre. So she's located here, and she's also advising the Committee for the Future, which is a parliamentary, a statutory committee of the Parliament. Then that will be followed by Elina Kiski-Kataja, who is Senior Lead of Foresight and Insight at Sitra. That's the Finnish Innovation Fund that helps Finland anticipate the future. And she's over here. That's a Parliament-initiated, future-orientated entity. The next speaker will be Vera Jakanov, Senior Expert, Anticipatory Governance at Demos Helsinki, which is an independent think tank that helps build capacities to instigate and sustain essential transitions. And our final speaker will be Dr. Kevin Deegan, who is Vice President for Innovation and Insight at Valio, which is Finland's biggest food exporter. And Kevin is on the panel primarily to give an Irish perspective on the overall ecosystem. So each of our panelists will give opening remarks for about 5 minutes, and then we will engage in a discussion before going to Q&A with our audience. And as you can see, we're only covering some parts of this quite extensive ecosystem. So you're only going to get a flavor, I suppose, of the overall ecosystem through this webinar. So some housekeeping, please join the discussion using the Q&A function on Zoom. Please send your questions in throughout the session and we'll come to them once the Q&A session begins. Please remember to include your name and organization when asking a question. And today's presentation and Q&A are both on the record. And please note all fire exits and please tweet using the handle @IIEA. So I'm going to stop my sharing of the screen and I'm going to hand over to Maria for her opening presentation.
Yes, thank you very much. Now I'm sharing the slides. Do you see them?
Yes.
Yes, all right. Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity to share with you some experiences from the Finnish angle. I am talking primarily from the academic and then a kind of governmental point of views. First, the academic. So I am positioned in Finland's Futures Research Center, which is really one of the few departments in the world that is specialized in the futures. We are a transdisciplinary unit and also a permanent advisor to the Parliament's Committee for the Future. Finland's Futures Research Center is established in 1992. It is part of the University of Turku. Its turnover is a little bit over 3.5 million euros. And it has 3 offices in Turku, Helsinki, and Tampere. There is some over 60 staff members, currently 24 doctoral students, 46 master's students, and then there are dozens of minor students all the time studying in 9 different universities of future studies, and the coordination is in Finland's Futures Research Center. Moving over to the Parliament side, Committee for the Future. There is some history that goes back in the 90s when futures thinking started spreading in Finland first through NGOs, and there were some interested politicians as members. And this served as a background that when Finland really hard hit the recession of the early 90s, then the Parliament decided that the government must have some kind of future outlook and preferably kind of alternative outlooks to the future. And as this decision was made, government made its first report on the future, and then the Committee for the Future was established to the Parliament to review the government's futures report. It was later made a standing committee, permanent one, and nowadays it also reviews government's Agenda 2030 report. The Committee for the Future also does some other kinds of scoping of the future. It gives statements of various futures relevant issues. It commissions its own studies and it develops parliamentary innovations. We come back to the latter point in the end. The government has just given its freshest, newest report on the future in September. It includes an overview of Finland's strategic environment with 26 drivers, 14 critical uncertainties, 4 scenarios, and scenario-specific impacts, and then some recommended actions to develop Finland's readiness for the future. The English translation has not yet been published. It's really fresh and it's ongoing. It's supposed to be published within a few weeks. And finally, regarding the parliamentary innovations, on the most international one of these, which I picked for this presentation, is the World Summit of the Committees for the Future, because nowadays Finland is not the only parliament anymore to have one. So all the 6 or 7 committees for the future were invited together with some science and technology committees that had really broad mandate towards the future in Helsinki in 2022. And thereafter, the second summit has been in Uruguay and the third one in Chile. The fourth one is probably going to take place in Africa. Kenya is currently trying to set up its own committee for the future. That's it. Thank you.
Muted.
I'll move straight on to Vera Jakanoff for her presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Donaka. Just a second, I'll share my screen. So thank you, Donaka. Thank you to fellow panelists, and I'm really grateful for the Institute of bringing us all together today. So my name is Vera Jakanoff, and I come from a globally operating non-profit think tank, Demos Helsinki, and we are celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. We don't have a strategy. We have an impact model with a mission to lead societal transformation towards a sustainable, joyful, and fair next era. And the way we work is that we believe there are leverages that we should be pulling on together, from governance to technology, infrastructure, and agency and decarbonization. But we also recognize that we cannot do this alone. So we work with governments, UN institutions, academia, civil society actors, private organizations to make this happen. And currently we have over 100 projects each year in 30 different countries. Finland is still very much a key focus to us, and because of also what Maria was just explaining, there's a strong tradition in experimenting and being future oriented. And to maybe explain a bit about our approach to foresight. So we are living a period of time where what we see on the news, what we witness in our work can feel quite overwhelming because of the uncertainty. And for the 20 years that we've been around, foresight has been kind of core of our operations. It's a horizontal lens method that we apply to our different areas of work. And here is how we define foresight. So we all make decisions. We all plan ahead with some ideas of the future. And many of those assumptions we are more aware of, and we are also more happy to admit them, such as which come from data, evidence, understanding, kind of where we have evidence on certain changes taking place and influencing our operating environment. But then there are also assumptions we aren't that aware of. These may be fears, dreams, where do we want to go next? Misconceptions, things like that. And foresight is an approach which brings robust methodologies to systematically view future. So we create a structure around that where we make our implicit thoughts about the future, we question them critically, and it allows us to take a more long-term view on the issues that we are working it. And it also allows us to become better aware of those assumptions and also be quite honest about what it is that we do not yet know. So it's basically a structured way to make sense of uncertainty and prioritize and identify what's meaningful to us and where do we want to go next. What are the desirable futures we should be aiming for? And also it's about expanding strategic horizons. So it's about understanding that there is no one future, but there are multiple different possible outcomes. But us as humans, we often focus only the most obvious one. So therefore, to create more credible plans, to create agency in future, you need to understand the multitude of different outcomes and what is our role to influence them. And the word influence is important here because with foresight, we refuse to believe that things will just happen as they are, and then it's our role to react. But here we are more proactive in shaping, understanding what is our sphere of influence and agency within those futures. So what this can look like, I brought here 3 examples from our work. So on the left side, we've worked with the Scottish government, who's engaging in horizon scanning to support their policy, helping them make prioritizations and understanding better what's underlying that they need to be better aware of. So in an effort to broadening those assumptions about the future, we supported in organizing an engagement to young people across Scotland from ages to 14 to 19-year-olds to work together intensively on different possible scenarios and different trends to understand how they perceive the key changes happening in the world, from technological to climate, because young generations witness the world significantly differently than the older ones. Second, on institutionalizing foresight, which is about the ways how we bring foresight and future-oriented mindset to the core of strategy and organization. We worked with the Ministry of Interior and its administrative branch here in Finland to develop a strategic foresight model that links to the performance management cycle, which sets out defines the functions of foresight. Alongside that, also defines the distribution of roles and responsibilities. So going from a separate exercise, this allowed the foresight to become embedded in the organizational culture and have a clear function around how the organization already makes decisions. And then thirdly, the third example is from a masterclass we've organized with the Lyceum School of Public Policy, because as was already said, that Finland is often considered to be as one of the blueprints one of the model countries in foresight. Singapore is a second example, but we also recognize that no blueprints exist. What we can learn from these countries is the element of experimentation and how they've built enabling conditions for that experimentation. And then this masterclass brought together civil servants around the world to help disseminate those learnings and most importantly make sense and contextualize them to their own work. So these were three very different examples of what our understanding of foresight and our work looks like in practice. And what we've come to learn from that is that foresight on its own is valuable when it forms a basis for anticipatory governance. And when we talk about anticipatory governance, we basically mean different means of turning foresight into something valuable, into capacity for long-term planning and implementation. So it's about all of these levels at the same time. You need to think about the individual and the system, and in order to actually be more anticipatory, in order to escape the gridlocks of today, this is everything that you should be focusing on and rethinking how they take into account futures. Finally, I wanted to leave you with a publication we co-created with the Finnish government actors, NGOs, and citizens from the understanding that Finland does so much valuable foresight, but there's still some gaps in how that's utilized in decision making, and that's what, for example, OECD has referred to as the impact gap. So this publication offers a really early consensus about what are the biggest challenges and how to move forward from that. And and with the impact gap, I want to invite that because I think it's an important consideration in any foresight activity first, is that if you don't take into account how the foresight, who are you doing foresight for, what is the function and purpose, there's the danger that it remains perceived as irrelevant or disconnected from priorities. And basically, that comes back to the definition of anticipatory governance, which is that it's capacity for long-term planning and implementation. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vera. And I'll hand straight over to Elina from Sitra.
Yes, hey, good morning from Helsinki also from my side. And so my name is Elina Kiiski-Kataja and I work for Sitra, the Finnish Innovation Fund, which is a public foundation functioning under the Finnish Parliament. And for some reason, I cannot show slides from my computer, so thank you for helping me with the slides from the Irish side. So you can directly jump on the first slide. I'm just saying, or the second actually, I will just briefly present what Sitra is. So Sitra is the Finnish Parliament decided in 1967 that Finland, as the 50th anniversary of the Finnish independence, Finland would get a foundation that was given a mission to build a successful Finland for tomorrow. So there is a law about Sitra and our purpose in the society, and the idea is that that our role is to build the Finnish society and Finnish economy towards the successful future. So, but we are independent in the sense that we function financially independent. So we fund our operation from the endowment of our capital, and I come back to this a little bit later. And because we function under the parliament, we are independent from the government. So I mean, what we do is not depending on what are the priorities of the government, but it allows us to challenge and innovate. But also, of course, we work a lot together with ministries and so on. But if we go forward, I will first, if we go forward with the presentation, I want to explain a little bit that, like, in order to use futures thinking, you actually need to build grounds for it. And on the next slide, I'm going back in the time and a bit like, what is the grounds in Finland? Why have we embedded futures thinking in our society? And if I go quite far away, we've had all kind of social innovations that were kind of universal suffrage, right to vote and right to candidacy in 1907, which was first in the world that was universal actually. And then in the 1940s, we had this January engagement that united labor unions and employers as negotiation partners. That again was quite proactive way to think about like the cooperation in the country. And then Comprehensive School Act, that the entire age group would receive the same basic education that create the foundation for Finnish education system. So there are like the tradition of like social innovations that I think has been helping to build the grounds for futures thinking. And if you go forward in the presentation, I would say that these were all kind of visionary changes that were building up for the futures. So they were not easy changes. They faced a lot of oppositions, and they were all thought of being quite radical at their time. But what is important to notice there that they all included more people within the society, decision-making and economic sphere, groups that had been formerly marginalized, like women, workers, children of all social and economic classes. So I think it's important to understand that in order to build up kind of impactful foresight model, you need to build grounds for cooperation. And if you go forward in my presentation, I think this is really, really important point to help the futures thinking. So, and I think what Ireland and Finland share is that we are both small countries. We have more or less the same population. And then I think, I don't know that much about the Irish culture, but I think Finland, it has helped that we have a long history of cooperation, consensus building, and that helps to create the grounds where you can start to build up all kinds of visionary and foresight changes. But the idea is that they become real when you include people in. If you go on, I come back now from the grounds to futures thinking that my Finnish colleagues have been already speaking about. So the next slide actually is presenting what you already heard, especially from Maria's presentation. So what is kind of like the institutional setting of the Finnish futures thinking? And as I represent Sitra, I come back to our role now with the next slide. So Sitra in this ecosystem represents kind of, we have been playing different kind of roles in the ecosystem, depending on what has been needed in different times. In the 60s, we started as a research and development funder. We have been like in the 80s, 90s, 2000, we've had a role in bringing investor capital market to Finland. That was something that was lacking. And during the 2010, 2020, we have been more working with public sector, acting as a societal change agent. So I would say that the role of Sitra in this ecosystem is always trying to move towards the directions where change is needed. And if you go on the next slide, so I mean, this is about like how, because we are a foundation, it of course helps that we have good financial grounds to operate. So our market value of our investments is close to 1 billion euros, but our annual budgets it's around 32 to 35 million euros. So I mean, it's important also when you work with future, it's always like in the ecosystem, when you are challenging society to change, it would be much more difficult for us if we were dependent on, for example, taxpayers' money. So, but now, because we are funding ourselves through the investments of our capital, it helps us to operate independently. It helps us to challenge. It's important that there is someone who can operate in that sense independently. But of course, since being under the supervision of the parliament, we are not as independent, for example, as the think tanks, as demos here, who they are representing, or science, who then again has different kind of independence. And if you move forward with the presentation.
Sorry, it's just a little bit slow here. One sec.
No worries. Let me see. So what I'm, yes. So what I was about to say is about about our impact. What are we trying to do at the moment in the Finnish society? We strengthen future thinking in the society and enhance foresight capabilities in decision making. So this is one of our strategic goals. And the second is that we produce significant social innovations and strengthen Finland's innovation capabilities. So these are impact goals that are changing within time, but at the moment this is what we work with. So we are very much focusing on kind of building up capabilities in the Finnish society for foresight and using foresight in the decision making. And if you move forward with the slides. So this is more specifically what in general we are a futurist innovation partner and funding partner. So another important role for us is now also that we don't do things by ourselves, but we fund different kind of operations in the society that we see are impacting futures, bringing futures thinking to decision makers, and of course we are producing reports and so on. And I think we are slowly coming to my two last slides. I think these are, I just wanted to show you some case examples, what we've done in the past. So I mean, case one, in the late 80s, early 90s, we were opening venture capital markets in Finland. So what happened there is that this was something that was lacking in Finland, and as we saw examples around the world about how the capital markets were building up, we were bringing this thinking and this idea to Finland and started to operate there. And this is like something that was very concrete futures thinking that became actually something that is really like part of our economy nowadays. In 2015, 2016, we've been a trailblazer for circular economy. So we were the first in the world creating the National Circular Economy Roadmap. And this we were building together with industry, together with universities, kind of facilitating this process. But also what is important, we were funding it with large amounts of funds, so that the first pilots could be getting started, and kind of we could concretely start to work with the concept that was completely new at the time, which was a circular economy that is now being quite widely adopted. But of course, there is a lot to work to do. And the case 3 experiment in basic income between 2017 2018, we tested universal basic income together with our National Pension Institute. And this trial, this experiment involved 2,000 unemployed individuals who received a monthly payment, and we were trying to understand what happens there. But it's important to notice that this trial did not kind of fly politically. So I think there's an important lesson here, that it's important to try things that don't necessarily fly. There are several reasons for this, but I think with the AI and the future is bringing, it might be that we see more interest in this basic income experiment in the future. And if I remember correctly, I think Demos was part of the experiment as well. And coming to my last slide, I think what is important is kind of building bridges from foresight and insight to action, that also Vera was referring to. So, I mean, it's really difficult actually and hard to pinpoint when foresight becomes actually something real, something tangible. So in reality, I mean, you need foresight, and then you have to start to build solutions. You need fertile grounds, for example. So I was referring to Finnish kind of a culture of cooperation. You need to build coalitions, you need to have pilots, you need to have funding, and also I think institutionalizing futures thinking helps in this. Failures are part of the picture, so I think it's really important to see that it's not clean or it's not clear, but like, you know, if you don't ever fail, I mean, then you are not doing right things, because future is messy. It's difficult to change course. And I think one of the important thing is what does it actually mean to lead a democracy in the 21st century? So it's a bigger question, and I think futures thinking is closely related to that. And this is just something that I wanted to bring out. But I will finish my presentation here, and I look forward to discuss with you further.
Thank you very much, Elina. And I'll hand straight over to Kevin. If you could unmute Kevin, yeah.
Yeah, so my name is Kevin Deegan. Thanks for the invitation. Very happy to join and give my own insights on this subject. I'm Vice President for Innovation in Valio in Helsinki, Finland, and then in my spare time, I'm also Professor of Practice in the Hanken School of Economics here in Helsinki. So just a little bit about Valio to start with. Valio was founded in 1905, so actually older than Finland itself. And it was set up by Finnish farmers to export Finnish butter around the world. And we are Finland's largest food exporter. So 25% of Finland's food exports are from us to the world. And a way to kind of visualize that would be around 200 shipping containers filled with our products and ingredients leave the country every week. We have a long tradition and legacy, I suppose, about innovation. The director of the Valio Laboratories, A.I. Virtanen, who's shown in this picture, won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 1945. And the reason we show this, obviously, it's quite rare that a dairy or food company would have a Nobel Prize in-house, but also it represents and symbolizes a lot about what innovation means. It's the beating heart of our company, and it has been our competitive edge as a relatively small fish in the global picture. And we're on a journey. We are traditionally a dairy company, and now we're making the change to being a food company. So we are involved in a lot of categories quite radically, you might say, in terms of we now also have a plant-based dairy range, or dairy alternative range, I should say, and also plant-based meats and meat alternatives, and then also into other products and services as well. So we do think of ourselves as a food company, and this is a mindset shift that we're currently undergoing in terms of how we approach the future. Just a quick mention about how we're trying to build the future. So we visualize, and our aim is that we lead the future food system in Finland, and that is one of complementary production methods. So if I guide you to the bottom right-hand corner of this slide, where we see the Finnish word for food is in the middle of that jigsaw piece, ruoka. And we see the future of that being animal-based, plant-based, and cell-based, which is quite a radical way of thinking, you would say, for traditionally what is a dairy company. And we were awarded funding by Business Finland last year to the tune of 10 million euros to establish the Food 2.0 RDI program, which is running for 5 years, and also to lead through their leading company program, the first food company to do so. In fact, this ecosystem of RDI research and academic research and industrial research around the area of future sustainable food production. And there's a potential funding of 100 million euros in that ecosystem. And to date, we currently have just under 200 different partners, mainly from Finland, but also, of course, open to international partners as well, working with us in this ecosystem to the aim. And then the aim in the bigger picture is to increase Finland's food exports to the tune of 1 billion euros over the next 5 years. So just some quick facts about the company. We're owned by just over 3,000 farmers through 13 cooperatives. We process 80% of the milk which is produced in Finland. We have 15 plants in Finland and Estonia, and our turnover last year was just over 2.3 billion euros. We export to 50 countries around the world. We are involved in plant-based milk and meat alternatives, in some cases the market leaders in certain markets in those categories. And this year we were named the strongest food brand, not just in Europe, as it says on this slide, but also in the world by Brand Finance, which is quite an achievement. We have various programs, for example, through sustainability, producing biogas from manure, through a joint venture with the Finnish fuel company, energy company, ST1. I think I mentioned the Nobel Prize. And then also we try to, between 5 and 10 years, 10 innovations or inventions to get them every year. And just very quickly about innovation. So I'm leading innovation management and corporate innovation. And what does that mean? Well, that's a good question. Innovation is a very difficult word to define, quite widely used, and I would say overused as well. So the way that we approach that internally so that it would mean something to everybody working in the company is that we try to think of it in terms of creativity, collaboration, and being comfortable in uncertainty, a word which has been repeated several times already in this webinar, so that we make innovation relevant and a shared responsibility for everybody in the company. And how we manage our innovation thinking essentially across the company is this 3-horizon model of innovation. So we try to consider what types of activities we need to do in the near future. In Horizon 2, for example, when we look at new possible growth opportunities and adjacencies for us. And then also to look to the future, and this is where we start to talk about futures thinking. What are our what-if questions? We've had some quite radical innovations and changes in the last 10 years of our 120-year history of the company. And also we will have quite radical changes coming up in the next near to far future as well. So how can we anticipate, evaluate, and try to find new growth in different areas? And that's where foresight comes in. So just a very quick overview of me and the company. If you're interested, you can find my LinkedIn through that QR code.
This podcast is brought to you by the IIEA, sharing ideas, shaping policy.